Welcome to Shut Up and Sit. I'm Yedda a consciousness coach and consultant. I'm on a mission to bring mindfulness to the modern world. Each week, we will offer ancient healing practices, real-world examples, and the latest research in neurobiology and behavior change into fun conversation that invites you to wake up your highest self. Now, let's go shut up and sit. All right, welcome back, everybody. Oh, so good to be here. The sun is shining in Richmond, Virginia. We are hanging out at the mindfulness bar. I got my little Shakira hair going, or maybe you might want to call that Shirley Temple. All the curls going, and that's because it's just an amazing, amazing summer day here, and I am just loving life. I'm loving that we just wrapped up our last episode not too long ago, really digging into the top 20 limiting beliefs. I hope you guys got a lot out of that last episode. And now we're really kind of moving into the 4 ways, literally the 4 ways to change a belief system. Lots of really cool stuff to talk about today. And, we went way far in the rabbit hole on the last episode. It's some cool stuff, but I mean, you want to go into somebody's inner landscape. And you've heard me say, actually, you're not going into anyone else's landscape. You're going into your own inner landscape. There's a reason why they made the movie Alice in Wonderland, you all. There's a reason why we talk about going down the rabbit hole. When we go into the inner world, so many amazing things come alive. And you could get lost, literally, I think, in someone's inner landscape. Or you could get lost in your own. I find the inner world absolutely you want to talk about some really cool stuff. I mean, yeah, the world's really exciting and the outer world's really cool, and I love the beauty and I love life and people and all that. But man, I love to go within. I absolutely love it. Probably because I've been doing it my whole life. And as you know, my story now of sitting out in the hallway and in school and what was going on at home, really my inner world was my means of survival as a kid. And not just going into the inner world of my own inner psyche, but my inner world of imagination, my inner world of possibilities. And we live in such a dynamic world. All of our inner worlds they have so much potential in them. And so I'm just really excited today to be here to just dig a little bit deeper. I think once we get out of this episode, it might give you a little bit of reprieve to kind of move into some mindfulness, some other stuff as we go further into the book and the chapter. But it's just where it all comes together. Chapter 4 is all about beliefs. We're getting ready to wrap that up. And, one of the things, we even have a belief about beliefs. I mean, you could really walk yourself into some circles. And when someone says to me, it's really hard to change, or, change can take a really long time. Listen to what you say and what other people say, because they're telling you what they believe. It's all a narrative. Our stories are reflecting our beliefs. And so when someone says, yeah, it's going to take a really long time to change this behavior, I'm like, yeah, that's because you believe it's going to take a really long time. I hold a different belief. I believe change is easy and fun. I believe this inner work is dynamic and amazing and liberating and freeing. And I'm so grateful and thankful that I do believe that, because my belief helps impact and helps the healing of my clients' beliefs. And so it's just a belief. Remember, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking until you don't even realize you're thinking it anymore. And we live in a world where you get to choose, especially in the United States of America, you get to choose what you believe. That's the coolest thing about this. And so if you believe that struggle and suffering are the way of life, and that you have to suffer and you have to struggle and it's going to be hard, then it's going to be. One thing I'm so grateful for my mom, and if you haven't heard our episode, please go back and listen to it. She's been on twice. She's coming back. But if you knew my mom, not only is my mom young and spunky and fun and super creative, my mom instilled a belief in me with her own wisdom that literally being creative and making something out of nothing and problem solving, and that was fun. I mean, we grew up, if you want to talk about, I own a couple of hot glue guns. I can craft the shit out of anything. I can create anything. My mom taught us that as kids. And so now as adults, my siblings and I, we joke about it. We go past a Ben Franklin or a Michael's craft store and we're like, oh God, because that was fun for my mom. A, she didn't have any money, but B, she had a belief system that we could create our own enjoyment. We could use the power of creation and play and imagination as a way to live and survive and problem solve. So I'm so grateful that for my mom, what many people might look at me as not the norm, I'm so glad, because my mom gave me belief systems that aren't the norm. But it's what I use now to help people challenge the status quo, to break out of norms that are holding them back, that are limiting them, that no longer serve them. And one of the things I want to start with today, before we kind of dig into and wrap in this last little piece about how to change a belief system, is in the book. What I have is, as you all know, you've heard me say this before, I weave in right brain and left brain things. So I'll go really heavy into the science of the brain waves, and then all of a sudden you'll turn the page and then there's a poem. And why would that be? Because I want you to balance out that really logical, linear way of wanting to know and knowing with sitting with not knowing, and or maybe even sitting with another perspective, and sitting with a creative or an introspective or another way to maybe possibly look at it. Because it's not about me telling you all the things you need to do and know. You've learned that by now. Beliefs don't change just by knowing something. You can be a really intelligent person and still have some really awful limiting beliefs that are wrecking your life in the unconscious. And so one of the things that's in this part of the book, right before we go into how we change those beliefs with those 4 components, is a poem that I love by Tara Moore. And it's titled Even in the Struggle. And I wanted to read that to start us off today. One, I feel like I need a little right brain, right? Just an intervention to just be with a little bit of the creative and the imagination. But I want you to hear how poetry can help you. And poetry is very mindful. I've read several poems already on the episodes. Poetry is a very mindful practice of possibly interjecting or bringing in another perspective of a way to see something. And that's a way that you could possibly change a belief. So there's a belief about struggle in personal development, in our world. We hold a belief on everything. And so this was a poem that I thought, wow, what a cool perspective of how she sees struggle. So just invite you wherever you are, as long as it's safe, to just take a moment and let's just get mindful together. Let's learn how to just shut up and sit. And if you can close your eyes and go within while you listen to these words, I'm going to read the poem and I'm going to read it 2 times through. And remember, 2 times there's a reason, because as we go into understanding how to change a belief system, repetition is the very first way we change a belief. So repeating things is important, because if you've never heard it or you don't know it very well, we repeat, and so it becomes automatic. So this is the poem by Tara Moore, Even in the Struggle. And she says, even in the struggle, you are loved. You are being loved not in spite of the hardship, but through it. The thing you see is wrenching, intolerable. Life's attack on you is an expression of love. There is this part of us that fears and protects and defends and expects it has to have this story of the way it's supposed to turn out. And that part clenches in fear and feels abandoned and cursed. But there is another part resting at the floor of the well within that understands, this is how I am being graced, called, refined by fire. The secret is it's all love. It's all doorways to truth. It's all opportunities to merge with what is. Most of us don't step through the door frame. We stay on the known side. We fight the door, we fight the frame, and we scream and hang on. On the other side, you are one with the earth like the mountain. You hum with life like the moss. On the other side, you are more beautiful. Wholeness in your bones, wisdom in your gaze, and the sage self and surrendered heart alive. And I'm going to read that again, and I'm going to read it again. And this time I want you just to notice what words or phrases or images might really stand out for you. And she says, even in the struggle, you are loved. You are being loved not in spite of the hardship, but through it. The thing you see is wrenching, intolerable. Life's attack on you is an expression of love. There is the part of us that fears and protects and defends and expects and has a story of the way it's supposed to turn out. That part clenches in fear, feels abandoned and cursed. There is another way, though, resting at the floor of the well within that understands, this is how I'm being graced, called, refined by fire. The secret is it's all love, it's all doorways to truth, it's all opportunities to merge with what is. Most of us don't step through the door frame. We stay on the known side and we fight the door. we fight the frame, and we scream and hang on. On the other side, you are one with the earth like the mountain. You hum with life like the moss. On the other side, you are more beautiful. Wholeness in your bones, wisdom in your gaze, the sage self and the surrendered heart alive. I love that poem. And I love that poem for a couple of reasons as you just kind of sit and marinate with those words. It's not meant to activate your logic side. Yes, we can do some deep dives into beliefs. Yes, we can rewire and we can get all into the science behind this. But the poems and the felt sense of just feeling the images, of imagining what it's like to be on one side of the door or the other. You might have asked yourself, what side of the door am I on? What side of the struggle am I on? And in this part of the work, most of my clients are standing on the side of struggle where they no longer want the belief that's holding them back, but they've never really literally or figuratively crossed the threshold to stand on the other side and then look at life through that lens, through that perspective. And so you might remember on our last episode, I talked about the limiting belief of I'm not enough. And if we're standing on the side of the threshold of the story of the doorway of I'm not enough, I'm curious, what does life look like when we stand there and all we see is I'm not enough, you're not enough, we're not enough, it's not enough, there's not enough. And so in your mind's eye right now, could you imagine, and if you are in a place where you're seated and it is possible and it's safe for you to move, I'd actually invite you right now to get up. If there's a doorway or a threshold crossing from one room to another, go stand literally at the threshold, walk through the doorway, and find another seat to look back into the room that you were just in, to gain a different perspective. And imagine on the other side of the doorway, what you looked back and saw was enoughness. And look back at the seat that you were just sitting in, and can you point out and identify all the things in that room, in that environment, that are enough? Can you also point out all the things inside of you that are enough? What does enoughness really feel like? And so we get caught up in the idea we're going to pursue all these things, but have we ever really shut up and sat down long enough to walk across the threshold literally and figuratively in our mind to stand and look at a different perspective? What else can you see? What is enough? There is enough. It's all about perspectives. And so her poem gives us another way of doing the work as doing the actual moving your body, crossing that threshold gives you a different perspective. And so I love poetry. I love science. I love it all. I just love it all. And I had a great experience yesterday. I woke up and I thought, what if I lived today as enough? Literally, what if I woke up and everything about my day was enough? And I had a great experience. I rode my bike and got coffee. I sat by a lake. I meditated, not literally in any type of practice. I just meditated on life. I just looked, I watched, I observed, and everywhere I looked, I thought, oh, there's the construction workers are working in the neighborhood. There's enough supplies for them to build. There's enough money to pay them to come to work. There's enough fresh air for the soil and for the plants. There's just enough. Everywhere I kept looking, I kept saying, where's the enoughness? And that was on my outer world. And then on the inner world, where was the enoughness? And so that's cultivating belief, because it's a repetition. It's doing something over and over and over again. And so what side of the threshold or what side of the perspective are you on with your belief system? If you're getting what you want in life, then your belief system is working in a healthy way to getting your needs met, if it's healthy. Okay. Now, if you're not getting your needs met and you have something holding you back, you just need to change your perspective, and you need to do it often enough so that you can get that to be automatic. So as I was sitting there yesterday with my enoughness mindset, it's been really apparent for me because I've been doing this work for a decade now. When I say this work, the deep, deep dive into my inner being to work on all this and figure all this out, to rewrite so many limiting beliefs. And there are people now that come up and they're like, I know it's you, but I feel like it's not really you. And I'm like, well, no, it's still me. But what I realized was a lot of people never really knew who I really was before. They just knew my ego, and they knew all these identities and roles I played. And, it was some of it good? Sure. Was it all good? No. And I think about even my own sister when I first did the podcast and I put some videos together and she called me and she was like, that's not my sister. And I'm like, well, the sister is probably crazy, dramatic, high strung, overworked. I mean, like operating on a lot of limiting beliefs. And so the real sister that's inside of me, she's here. And that's what she sounds like and actually looks like. And you don't recognize her. And I don't recognize her a lot of the times because she's still being born and created. Now I'm still me, but that's the real work of finding the beliefs that are really, truly who we really are. So what does a healthy belief look like anyway? So I'm going to run down the list for a few, and then I'm going to quickly give you these 4 ways to change a belief because it's not rocket science. I was amazed that we don't know this in the world at large. But here's what healthy beliefs look like. So now last episode we talked about all the top 20 limiting beliefs. So here is what it looks like for someone who walks around the world and holds the majority of healthy beliefs. I am aware. I'm loved. I'm supported. I can do anything I put my mind to. Life always works out for me. The universe will catch me. Change is an exciting and necessary step to growing and evolving. Every day unfolds the next step in my journey. I deserve a life without limitations. My life is dynamic because I welcome change. Awareness opens the door to new possibilities. I rest with comfort and ease in the present moment. I trust myself and others. The present moment always offers me a chance to begin again. I participate to the fullest in creating my reality. I create a reality that betters the world. I am enough exactly as I am, exactly in this moment. And so that is where my work evolved to as I started rewriting and literally rewiring my brain to walk into the world and have these be my default thoughts, to have these be my default belief systems. Now, am I working on this all the time? Is everybody working on it? Sure. But what I did in order to get to that work, I put these 4 things, right? There are 4 ways to change a belief into work. Bruce Lipton writes about this in The Biology of Belief, phenomenal book, documentary, amazing. But the number one thing that his research showed was repetition. Yes, repetition, right? Out of the 4, the first one's repetition. That literally, if you did something long enough, you will build a habit. You will build a habit in your brain. You'll build a neuroplasticity around this. All of this will just become automatic. Think about when you drive to work. You have done it so many times in the same way, in the same time, so your brain can literally go on autopilot. The brain loves habits. It loves patterns. It loves routines. Your brain uses the majority of the energy of your entire body. It's a massive computer. You don't want it to overheat. You don't want it to get fried. And so it uses patterns and habits, and it uses repetition as a great way to not take a lot of energy to do things that are done all the time. Brushing your teeth. Yeah, I get up every day in the morning. I have my same morning routine. First thing I do, I make my bed. Very first thing. It's a habit. It's a pattern. And so we can use repetition to change a belief. Most people think it's going to take 21 days. And the truth is that is absolutely false, especially if it's taken 49 years for you to develop this patterned way of being. Do you think you're going to change it in 21 days? Just think about that logically for a second. No. So most of the recent data says it's like over 286 days until you can really get some repetition to lay a new neural pathway. Now that is for something that's not majorly deep into your unconscious, is what we call a core wound or a sponsoring core belief system. So if it's taken, and I'm going to be 49 in September, if it's taken 49 years for me to do what I've been doing and build this belief system, or I've had it that long, even a year, 365 days, just barely begins to put a dent in it. So we've got to be really honest with ourselves as human beings. Yes, repetition works. No, it's not 21 days. Yes, we are human beings, and you can sit here, and if you were in the room with me, I have people who look me dead in my eyes, and they're like, I can do this the same time, every way, every day. And I'm like, really? And then within 7 days, I'm like checking in, hey, how'd it go? Well, we had our graduation, and then the dog got sick, and then that. Yeah, I know. I've made my whole career listening to people's excuses. We don't handle repetition very well, especially if it's something new and it's challenging belief systems. So I'm not saying you can't do it with repetition alone. But here's what I found. If you could partner number 1, which is repetition, with number 2, which is theta brainwave introduction. Remember, I've been talking about this leading up. Between the age of 2 and 7, theta brainwave is the second brainwave that we develop. It's a transient subconscious brainwave. It's very twilight, that's why we play lots of make-believe, lots of imagination happen. Up until 7 years old, you're playing all kinds of make-believe. I mean, broomsticks can be swords and bicycles can be rocket ships, and there's no limit to what you can do because you're living in a brainwave that says anything's possible. So you're being programmed literally in that brainwave state from 2 to 7. So hypnosis, mindfulness, meditation, all these practices activate theta brainwave. So my question was, well, what if I put the two together? What if every day I decided I was going to shut up and sit, and I was going to activate that theta brainwave, and I was going to go with them, and it could be 5 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. I mean, don't start this and say, I'm going to sit in silence every day for 30 minutes. That's a big, big leap if you've never, ever, ever practiced any type of mindfulness. However, you might want to start with 5 minutes. Even clients that say, I'm going to do 5 minutes every day, first thing when I wake up, and you know what? Don't set yourself up for failure. Be really honest. Be easy about it. Do what you can do. Get into the experimental mode. How easy is it for me to get up and be in a mindfulness practice first thing in the morning? Remember, that's when the theta brain is most active, first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening. But I thought, what if I could actually marry repetition with theta brainwave? That would be really cool. And what I started noticing was, and I was in it to win it, you guys. I was waking up in the morning. I had my repetition. I had my practice. I had my gratitude journal. I had my affirmations. I would sit in 20 minutes of silence and stillness. I graduated into that out of guided imagery. But I built a habit of the first thing I did in the morning is shut up and sit and go with him. Not in my phone, not on the computer, not out there talking to people in the world. I had a sacred moment of 20 to 30 minutes that was my time, my practice, because I wanted to see if repetition in partnership with theta brainwave would make it even easier and faster. And guess what? It did. So I call it a practice of shutting up and sitting because it's not a religion for me. I'm not into any of the Buddhism and Hinduism beliefs as far as religion go. I'm introducing the language of shut up and sit because that's what I did. I woke up every day and told myself, girl, it's time for you to go shut up, sit down right there on that little cushion in that room or in that chair and do your practice to go within. And the more I did it, the more I was cultivating my new awareness, my new narrative, and I was pulling stuff up and putting stuff in. And then I was going out in the world and it was showing up. And I thought, this is really interesting. Well, number 3 comes in because the third way to change a belief is energy psychology. And this is actually known as what's called like super learning. There's lots of techniques around energy psychology. It's a relatively new theory, but it's been around for eons, thousands and thousands of years. Energy psychology, EFT, is this emotional freedom technique, which is actually tapping. They tap on different meridian points on the body to activate and move. Remember, thoughts are mental units of energy that float down, and the mental unit of energy is in motion. That's an emotion, right? Through your body. And so sometimes those thoughts get stuck literally in the tissues of the body. So they'll have you work on this is a really important process in the Eastern philosophies in the body of where nerves come together and get activated right here. And so there's so acupuncture, acupressure, the Vedantics, the chakras, there's so much, and we might call that alternative medicine still. I don't call it alternative medicine because the truth is they knew 3,500 years ago what they were doing. So the alternative to me is the Western world now. And so let's just call it energy psychology. It's just another way of saying alternative therapies or modalities or medicine or healing. But these ancient arts, I'm not going to argue with anybody. When someone comes in and tells me they did something to modify or alter their energy flow, their chi, whatever is going on inside of their body, we're all energy. It's all energy. And there's a great book by Donna Eden that talks about the 9 layers, literally, of energy from the inner tissues of the body and the nervous system all the way out up into 9 feet around us. So there's been ancient studies on energy and energy psychology in our world for a really, really long time. I don't profess to be an expert at it, okay? So if you've got my book in the back in the resource section, there's lots of ways you can learn more about energy psychology. Bruce Lipton's got a huge page on his website about this as well. But we're talking about accessing at a energetic level in the unconscious where the thoughts meet the emotions and the brain and the body and everything comes together. And literally you can engage in some super learning if you're activating energy psychology. Now, you've got to be really careful with this because there are some people out there that do take advantage of that. And I know some psychics and some healers and proclaimers and fairy wand sellers and, you name it, they're out there. And it's really important to really discern and not get carried away by promises, because if anyone makes you a promise with this one thing, you too can be really careful to discern, is that really true for me? Now, belief does have power, and if you hold the belief that what they're telling you is going to work, chances are you might get something out of it. Placebo is very powerful, which means it's a belief. If I believe what I'm putting into my body or what I'm doing is going to work, it's going to have some impact. So know that energy psychology is real, but be very careful that yes, it's an ancient old tradition, thousands of years, but you want to be really careful because we've got a whole new industry cropping up, and it's been cropping up in the new age world around this that can be really dangerous, and you can build some dependencies. And because it's still at an egoic level for a lot of practitioners, I'm not going to say most people, but for a lot of practitioners, the ego gets latched on, and then all of a sudden, those people that run around and they're like, they can only sit on this seat and they can only do that kind of food and they can only have this kind of color. And it gets into such an egoic kind of ritualistic trap of not really understanding energy. Your energy, your ability to heal yourself is always available to you. Think about when you cut your arm by accident. Your immune system doesn't need you to consciously tell the cells to go in there and repair. It has an intelligence all of its own. Your energy has an intelligence all of its own. It's getting you in the right environment and having the right experiences of working with energy psychology that, in addition to repetition and theta brainwave, you can even more so speed up your way of reprogramming your belief. So for me, what that looked like was when I put together my prayer room in my house, having a place that I could go into every day, and I go in there daily, and I could be in that theta brainwave in the morning and the evening, and I could learn ways of evoking more theta brainwave even at different times of day. The energy psychology that's in there is there's no electronic devices. I have different modalities. I have a really cool Native American drum. The vibration of sound is the way to manipulate energy. Essential oils. I've got some cool gemstones. I've got some cool things. I don't rely on them, but they're in a space to help me support my energy. I even have some of Donna Eden's kind of tapping and tuning forks and stuff, but I don't rely on them as much as I rely on the innate wisdom and healing that's inside of me. So the first thing I do is shut up and sit. And then I ask myself, where am I today? What do I need? And then I'm like, oh, lemongrass might be really cool. And then I let the answers come. And then I might put some lemongrass. And so I let the wisdom of the energy that's already inside of me speak to me. And if I feel called to go work with people in the energy psychology world, I make sure I vet that process and that I'm doing something that actually benefits me, doesn't harm me or others. So just want to name that because it's a really still sketchy kind of space, number 3, if you don't know what you're doing, and you can get duped into a lot of stuff because people's egos still don't know what they're doing around some of that. And now, last one, number 4, and I didn't save this because it is the worst one. Trauma is real in our world, and a traumatic or a high impact life event or change. And I say high impact because it doesn't have to be completely traumatic. Death, diagnosis of severe illness or disease, any major traumatic event, or what we could call a high impact moment. Losing your job could be a high impact moment. Can actually have a major ability for you to change a belief system. And what that looked like for me was, and you've probably read in the book if you've got it, but what that looked like for me, if you don't, is that when my dad died of what was called drug intoxication, he was 43 and I was 20. I'll never forget where I was in my life was I was drinking every night, either a 12-pack or I could put down a fifth of bourbon in a night. And I'm not bragging. I did it. I've done it many times on bets. I was doing all different types of drugs. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was in the throes of addiction and abuse in many ways in my life. And the moment, it was a Saturday morning that my mom came to my apartment and walked in and sat down and told me that my dad had died, I quit everything. Something snapped inside, and we talk about that in psychology. It's called a schema fracture. Something snapped inside of me that said, it killed him. It's going to kill me. Now, we can tell stories. We all have stories of loss and trauma in our lives and in other people's lives. Now, the gift of what I can look back now, then it was not a gift, that the trauma of that loss gave me was it sent my life on a complete other trajectory. And I can't help but wonder that if someone was having a conversation with my dad in that moment, which my dad really was my God, if somebody had a conversation with him and said, would you give up your life in order to save hers? I know my dad would have said yes. But I look back and I can't help but wonder, what if that traumatic event had never happened? I really do believe, you guys, I'd be somewhere in a trailer park with 6 kids from, multiple different, I wouldn't even be married. I'd probably still be on food stamps. I'd be still living out the limiting beliefs and the awful, horrible patterns of abuse and addiction and despair and suffering that I was living in then, that my family had been living in their whole life. I'd still be there. And so trauma has the ability to heal us, but it comes for a lot of us at a high cost, especially for our ego, a really high cost. So these are our 4 ways of how we can change a belief system. I don't intentionally wish or will number 4 on anyone. I do have great, great compassion and great, great love and kindness, and am holding space for those of you listening who have been through a trauma that has radically and drastically changed your life. I know that those are moments that, they haunt us. And it's, my dad's now been dead longer in my life as I'm alive, than he was when he died. So, I got 20 years with my dad. I'm 49. And so for the past 29 years, I'm in a new norm of what life has lived like and looked like without him. But there isn't a moment or a day that goes by that I don't think about him, because I think all of this is possible because I had that massive shift. So the gratitude that I have for that loss, it's a place that, man, it's taken me years of mindfulness to hold the both and of that. Like, there's both, God, that was fucking awful, to, oh my God, if that had never happened, look at where my life is right now. And so as we work through these ways of changing beliefs, what I want to begin to leave you guys with is, you get to choose if you want to do repetition, theta brainwave, and if you want to investigate energy psychology. And if you're dealing with a trauma and you're still working through how to make some sense of that, eventually and at some point, I really hold space and hope that you can see how that trauma might have been of some value or benefit to you in some way. And I want to say that really tenderly, because I don't even pretend to know what I'm speaking to about your own trauma. But is there some aspect of your life that can be used and has been used to help you change belief systems? And can you now consciously step into the habit of shutting up and sitting, of using repetition and theta brainwave partnered together, spatter a little energy in there, and really start to drop into the unconscious, find out what you believe, and then through continuing to work together and reaching out, if you want to work closer together, ways to go in and rewrite those belief systems. This is how you do it. And my clients do. They might bring trauma to me, or they might come with questions about energy psychology, but 99% of them hear number 1 and number 2, repetition, theta brainwave introduction. Shut up, sit down, go within and practice a new patterned way of finding silence. Remember, silence is unconditioned consciousness, which means if you can find some silence, you can rewrite. There's a new pattern. There's a new way of showing up that's available to you. We're so busy and we don't pause long enough in our world that's why we keep creating the same old shit, because we're creating and running on the same old patterns. Think about this. When you upgrade your computer or your phone, what do you have to do? Robin, when you upgrade your phone, what does it make you do? You got to power it down. You got to turn the thing off. You have to interrupt to update. Same with your computer. It's got the little bar. It's telling you it's updating, it's uploading. Nothing else is running quite at full speed or at all while the update's occurring. It's no different for us, for our own human brains. So in closing, this is what I have in the book, and I like to read some of it because you guys, when I teach you this, I'm teaching you fractions of it. A box on a page is usually an episode in the show. But here's what I have in this section of the book talking about these 4 ways to change a belief. And it says, mindfulness says, why don't we access our theta brainwave and drop deeper into the seat of self and find the pause between our thoughts? That's really what I'm asking you to do. So why aren't we doing it? Even if only for a millisecond, if you can sit on the mat or the cushion or the chair or the couch, even if you could sit there for a second, no matter how uncomfortable you might be at first, you can access that pause where unconditioned consciousness resides. And if you sit with that pause long enough, you begin to discover the freedom to choose a different thought, which thereby changes your entire reality because it builds a new belief system. You get what you believe. You can change what you believe. And right now in the world, everyone's talking about beliefs and diversity. And there's this new acronym, Yedda training, which is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Really cool acronym. I love it. I fully support that we should live with justice and equity and diversity and inclusion. But what I'm really, really, really curious about, and where I believe this work has the most value, and if as a world where I'm really curious is, are you guys doing something to cultivate the pause, to shut up and sit down and go within and learn belief systems of justice, of equity, of diversity and inclusion? Or are we just out there running our mouths telling everybody that we want justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and we're not able to all, on both sides of the threshold of the struggle, not sitting down long enough to go within to say, how can I show up with a belief system with justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion for all, even if I'm a minority and I feel like I'm on the receiving end of this? How can I show up and help other people be that which I already am? We have to cultivate the pause, the silence. We got to pattern interrupt, and we got to upgrade the script. We got to upgrade the entire app. We got to upgrade our entire society. And that's what Shut Up and Sit gives you, is the ability to give your whole mind a new upgrade, a new meaning making, a new way of showing up in the world, to cultivate belief systems that are for the best and highest good for everybody. And so that's my hope. That's my goal. I keep showing up. I'm going to keep showing up. As long as you guys keep showing up to listen, I'm here. If you're not listening, I'm still going to be here somewhere, somehow. I believe in the world is being asked to do this work right now. And that's why I think the language Shut Up and Sit is so palpable for me, because it's not related to a religion or to a dogma or to anything. It's rewiring something you already know. You've probably heard it most of your life. And we're saying, now can you use what you've been told most of your life and been used as a form of punishment? Can you take that and find your freedom? Can you find your liberation? Can you cultivate belief systems to bring your best self out into the world? I know you can do it. I did it. And there are thousands and millions of people all over the world in the process of doing this in many ways, shapes, and forms. So I wholeheartedly invite you to shut up and sit today, go within, and start to ask yourself, which of these 4 ways am I either in, or would I like to dig into a little bit more to learn how to change a belief system that's holding me back in my life? As always, I'm here to support you. You can go to shutupandsit.com. There's ways to reach out, connect, get more involved. And until next time, you guys, have an incredible day. Hold all of this loosely. Be in all of the glory of life wherever you are. And I wish you well, and I'll see you on the next episode. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
May you know goodness. May you know peace. May you know contentment. May you be at